The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. On one occasion, when Jesus was going to the house of a leader of the Pharisees to eat a meal on the Sabbath, the lawyers and Pharisees were watching him closely. When Jesus noticed how the guests chose the places of honor, he told them a parable. When you are invited by someone to a wedding banquet, do not sit down at the place of honor, in case someone more distinguished than you has been invited by your host, and the host who invited both of you may come to you and say, "Give this person your place." And then in disgrace, you would start to take the lowest place. But when you are invited, go and sit down at the lowest place, so that when your host comes, he may say to you, "Friend, move up higher," and then you will be honored in the presence of all of those who are sitting at the table with you. For whoever exalts himself will be humbled, and whoever humbles himself will be exalted. Jesus said also to the Pharisee who had invited him, "When you give a luncheon or a dinner, do not invite your friends or your brothers or sisters or your relatives or rich neighbors, in case they may invite you in return and you would be repaid. But when you give a banquet, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, and the blind, and then you will be blessed, because they cannot repay you, for you will be repaid at the resurrection of the righteous." The Gospel of the Lord. The theme of this Sunday's readings is very simple, that of humility. We find it beautifully put in our first reading from the book of Sirach. And keep in mind that the book of Sirach is a collection of the wisdom of Israel that was made by an old man living in Jerusalem and sent to his son who was living in Alexandria in Egypt. And his son was so impressed with it that he started to spread it around to make copies of it. And it eventually became one of the books of our scripture. But at its heart is the wisdom of a grandfather speaking to his grandson. "My child," that expression is used frequently in the book of Sirach. "Perform your tasks with humility, and then you will be loved by those whom God accepts." And ultimately, the grandfather is writing about the people of God whom God accepts. The greater you are, the more you must humble yourself, so that you will find favor in the sight of the Lord. Many are lofty and renowned, but it is to the humble that the Lord reveals his secrets. Ties in so beautifully with our gospel reading. Jesus invited to the home of the leader of the Pharisees, probably not all that comfortable there. Wasn't really the crowd that Jesus was used to hanging with. And so he's watching them at the same time as they are watching him. He notices how some of them at least choose the places of honor, as close as they can get to the one offering the banquet. And so he tells them a parable. If you're invited to a banquet, don't take the best seat, even if it's only because you might get embarrassed. Somebody more important will come and, sorry, that seat's not for you, you'll have to move. And then you'll end up going down to the poorest seat. But when you come to a banquet, take the lowest place, And then maybe the host will say, no, come up, my friend, move up higher. And then you will be honored in the presence of all who are at table with you. And Jesus ends that parable with one of his favorite sayings. We all have favorite sayings. We all recognize our own favorite sayings. We all at times quote the favorite sayings of others. I know I'm always quoting my father especially. It's a little bit like Sarah quoting his grandfather. Well, one of the favorite sayings of Jesus is the one that finishes this parable and a number of others as well. For whoever exalts himself will be humbled, and whoever humbles himself will be exalted.